Hello and welcome to McFadden's World. Today we're going to be talking about protest art, so I hope you're ready. Protest art has been around for as long as there has been authority. Let's take a look at 3 pieces of art from the last 100 years that is art dealing with protesting something. The first one we're going to talk about is Pablo Picasso's Guernica. This was created in 1937 and it was in a protest of the Spanish Civil War. A small town in Spain, Guernica, was bombed. It didn't have any kind of military presence. It was just civilians. And for 4 days, they bombed this city. Pablo Picasso made this piece of artwork in protest of the Civil War, and he displayed it at the World's Fair so that the world could see. It not only stayed in Spain, but it did go and travel around the world so that more people could see it and be affected by it. The next one I'm going to show you is Keith Haring, Ignorance Equals Fear. This painting was from 1989. Keith Haring was a gay man who wanted to bring light to AIDS. At that point in time, not a lot of people knew about AIDS or how you caught it or how it was transmitted, and the government wasn't doing anything. So Keith Haring, in partnership with the Silence Equals Death, the ACT UP project to fight against AIDS, they made t-shirts. They sold these so that they could raise money for medical research and to call attention to it and force the government to start taking this seriously and providing support for the people that were affected by it. The next one is a street mural in Brazil by the artist Paulo Itu from 2014. This was when FIFA, which is the World Soccer Organization, had the World Cup in Brazil, and Brazil spent all of this money making new stadiums and tearing down favelas and ghettos to make way for all this soccer stuff, and the people weren't really welcome there during the games. So this was put up as people had to walk by of a starving child having to eat football. Whereas all those millions of dollars that Brazil spent on the soccer stadiums and the upkeep could have been spent for education or feeding the starving people of their country. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some contemporary artists that are working today with protest art. One of my favorite is Ai Weiwei. He is a Chinese artist that calls attention to the plight of refugees and people fleeing war and those that are oppressed. He's also known as an iconoclast, which is taking items and destroying them. Now, this is a famous series he did that he took this 1,000-year-old urn and he dropped it. And these photos of him have sold for $1 million. And there's always a discussion, well, why is he allowed to destroy artwork? Wouldn't he be destroying the past? And it's really interesting because he's calling light to it. These urns are, past day Tupperware. Here he's just calling attention to it to get people to realize what's going on. He also did this piece where he went and collected the life jackets of refugees that were fleeing war that would drop these on Greek islands and just leave them there. He collected all of the life jackets and he actually put them on the posts of this Berlin's music hall to call attention, so that even though the refugees are far removed from this place in Berlin, he still wants people to see it and know what's going on and call attention to it. This is another project that he did after the earthquake in China. A lot of buildings fell down because of shoddy workmanship. One of them was a school. This is 9,000 backpacks that spell out a quote from the mother of a child that died in the earthquake in China. The quote reads, "She lived happily for 7 years in this world." I would highly recommend PBS art assignment, The Case for Ai Weiwei. You can learn a lot about him and it has some really good information, goes into his work a little bit more. Another artist I want to talk about is the Guerrilla Girls. This is a collection of anonymous female artists that calls different art institutes and galleries and museums on the fact that women and people of color are highly under represented in these institutes. And they do that with posters and billboards and really public art to call attention to it. The Guerrilla Girls have taken on aliases of famous women artists who have passed. So there is Katka Kollwitz, there is Frida Kahlo, there's a lot of different ones. Some of their artwork, women in America earn only 2/3 of what men do. Women artists earn only 1/3 of what men artists do. So they do a lot of tongue-in-cheek, a lot of visuals to help get their information across. Guerrilla Girls Pop Quiz. Question: if February is Black History Month and March is Women History Month, what happens to the rest of the year? The answer for them is discrimination. One of my favorites. Do women have to be naked to get into the Met Museum? Less than 5% of the artists in the modern art section are women, but 85% of the nudes are female. So the Guerrilla Girls are very much about getting their message out there and what they call creative complaining. I would suggest looking at the video on YouTube from PBS Digital Studios that is the Guerrilla Girls, The Creative Complaint. And they go into their residency that they had at the Tate Modern Museum in London, and it's a really interesting take on the world. So everyday people being protest artists. This is just a small collection of people that I have seen at different protests making artwork to share with the world, whether that is quotes from famous people, images. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So how can we make protest art? One of the ways I've done this was at the Banana Factory Protest Art Project in 2017. I invited the public to come in and make their own postcards about a topic that they wanted to protest about. Now, there were all different kinds of protests. I didn't give directions. I just said, what do you want to complain about? What do you want to protest? And these were some of the images that people shared with us, and then we were able to display them for other people to come in and see. Now, for your protest art postcard, let's take a look at what we're going to need. The supplies that you will need is paper, a cereal box or other thin cardboard, scissors, glue or a glue stick, crayons, markers, colored pencils, and finally a stamp. With these items, we will be able to make our own art. So let's take a look at that. All right, so I have all my supplies here. I've already cut my piece of cardboard, and this was a piece of a cereal box that I cut out. And then we also have a plain piece of paper where you can draw your image. Now, with the plain piece of paper, this is too thin to go through the mail. It's more likely to rip. So that's why I suggest having the piece of cardboard that we're going to glue onto it. So I've already made my image. Here is my image. It says, they said it wouldn't leak, and it is about fossil fuels being leaking into our water sources and rivers and oceans. So I have made my postcard, and what I did was I cut out my piece of cardboard, and it is 5x7, and the piece of paper that I have matches that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my glue stick, and I'm going to put glue on the cardboard and also on the paper. It's important to do that because if you only put glue on one side, the paper will not stick. And you're just going to go ahead and stick those together. Now, on the other side of the cardboard, where it's just the brown color on the inside of the packaging, is where you're going to write your letter. Now, on one side, on the left side, this is where you're going to put your letter or what you want to say or what you're protesting about. And over on this side is where you're going to write the address. Please remember, first line is your name, second line is the address of the person you're sending it to, then city and state, and finally country and zip code. Now, one last thing you have to do before you drop your postcard in the mail, and that's to put a stamp on it. Once you put a stamp on it, you can put it in the mail for your mail carrier to be able to take it to whoever you're sending it to. Now, if I was going to be having this postcard, I might send this to a fossil fuel executive or company. Depending on what the topic you pick, you might want to find somebody else that affects that change, that you can go forward with that. If you have a social issue, maybe your local representative or your congressperson or the governor. If it is an environmental issue, maybe you want to send it to the Secretary of the Interior, whoever you might think might be affected by the art that you send them that could enact change. So once you finish your pictures, before you mail them off, I would love to see some of your artwork. So if you can take a picture of your postcard, of the artwork that you made, and share it with me at bmcfadden at basdschools.org. We're going to get together with the Banana Factory and have a visual art show on all the postcards that people have made. So I hope that you will join us in our protest art postcard project and be able to share it with the rest of the country and the world. So thank you very much for taking the time. Much love from McFadden's World to yours.